Nothing can touch you. You never really lose. Go to arrest some freak, find out you aren't as invincible as you thought.
Murdered Soul Suspect's story begins in Salem, Massachusetts with the death of protagonist Ronan O'Connor, a police officer on the trail of the elusive Bell Killer, a psychopath with no clear modus operandi who murders victims with very few common denominators. Thrown out of a window and shot 7 times in the chest, Ronan is surprised to find himself still tied to the world of the living by the supernatural thriller cliché of unfinished business. The business in his case being the pursuit of justice for himself and the other victims. With only the crudely drawn symbol of a bell to tie the killings together, Ronan must call upon his years of experience and natural intuition to solve his own murder. Before long, he meets Joy, a medium who can see and hear him as though he were alive, but who is reluctant to help him in case she is one day labelled as insane. While searching for the connections between the Bell Killer and Joy's missing mother, the two form an uneasy buddy cop style bond with plenty of suspicion and sarcasm thrown in. Ronan's investigation provides him a whirlwind tour of Salem's most haunted hotspots, each with their own ghost stories unravelled by finding scattered collectibles. Similarly to LA Noire, the crux of the gameplay is exploration and investigation. Coming upon a crime scene will present you with a question that needs answering, and you'll only find the answer by looking at everything you can possibly interact with and then sieving out the unimportant information. Also, similarly to LA Noire, it's not ever really that taxing and there's no real fail state. Most investigations are very straightforward and amount to little more than a find the item game as you move around the immediate area looking for button prompts. Certain areas of Salem that were burned during the town's checkered history still remain as ghostly residue visible to Ronan, and a ghostly building is often more an obstacle than a real one. Airtight games use this element and the concept of consecrated buildings to funnel the gameplay along a fairly linear channel. You can break away from the investigation in between areas to explore the town and find some collectibles, but on the whole, the narrative takes you where it wants you to be, and there's very little freedom when playing as a ghost should be more liberating than anything else. In fact, such restrictions are what hold Murdered back. For example, certain things can be affected by poltergeist activity, but aside from a segment where Ronan must distract police so that Joy can escape custody, it's totally unused. You can stand there making vending machines fire out coke cans and photocopiers discharge stacks of paper until your heart's content, and it has zero effect on people unless the game wants it to. Likewise, Ronan can possess the living and then read their minds, look at what they're holding, or if he has enough information, influence their actions. Unfortunately, it's incredibly limited. Reading thoughts almost always boils down to a single superfluous sentence, and not only are lines recycled through various NPCs, the voices are too. It's horribly jarring and completely undermines the mechanic. Perhaps the coolest thing about possession is that you can leap into cats over whom you have complete control. You can't go roaming, sadly, and must instead use their little black bodies to locate collectibles in the immediate area or reach high windows. As Ronan can't enter consecrated buildings unless through an open door or window, he is occasionally forced to use a cat's agility to gain entry at a higher point. If Murdered Soul Suspect has a primary saving grace, it's the atmosphere. Shades of the Dead are everywhere in Salem, often with a story to tell. Although the questioning system is very basic, and some even have investigations of their own for Ronan to solve before they can move on into the afterlife. While there is no actual combat, peril comes in the form of demons, spirits who have spent so long in limbo that they've gone mad. They appear at scripted junctures and must be avoided or defeated, or they will eventually devour Ronan's soul. To escape them, you'll need to hide inside pockets of ghostly residue until the demon turns its back, at which point you can sneak up behind them and execute them. The first few encounters are fairly intense, but after a while you realise that they're easy to dispatch, at which point they lose their impact almost entirely. Ronan himself is not your average hero and is a fairly complex character. His backstory is revealed throughout the narrative, showing his criminal beginnings and his redemption in the name of love when he married his wife Julia and repented of his sins by joining the police force. It is revealed that his past was deliberately concealed by his brother-in-law Rex, who saw the good in him and wouldn't allow his little sister to marry a criminal. The script is solid, if a little hokey at times, and the voice work is rather impressive, particularly the relationship between Ronan and Joy. But a murder mystery is only as good as the ultimate reveal, and while Murdered Soul Suspect is interesting enough to keep you invested in the characters and their various plights, the payoff is simply not impactful enough. There aren't enough characters to keep you guessing, and in fact, the identity of the killer is 50-50 throughout between the only other male characters in the game. When eventually the culprit is revealed, and more importantly his reasons divulged, it feels convoluted, as though the writers decided the killer at the end and retroactively altered the narrative to suit. For all its shortcomings, Murder remains an enjoyable romp. The lack of direct combat never becomes an issue, and the pacing of the main plot is just right. What immersion is lost through lazy NPC behaviour and limited interaction with the world is gained back by the wonderfully sinister atmosphere and the likeable leads. Not an instant classic, but likely to do well in cult circles. Murdered Soul Suspect is a new approach to an old genre. On the whole, there's not enough substance to make a second playthrough viable, so the value for money is questionable, yet the mystery as it stands is well worth investigating.
It's like badges of honor. Now you think this new badge covers all that up? You're a fucking criminal.
You need to slow down.